Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that goes to the cinema every week, watches a couple of things, rates them out of 5, stays at home, watches a couple of things, rates them out of 5, puts them up against each other and sees where money has been better spent this week. My name is Tosin and I am your host in a place called Bromsgrove in the middle of the United Kingdom. And joining me as always on the Isle of Wight are Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
And Shaun Harris.
Hello.
Hello, people. This is the first time I think in about 3 weeks where we've had more than just two of us on the call, which is well. I'm glad that this is because it was beginning to not be a novelty that there were only two of us here. So I'm glad that that's it. So, oh yes, as we said, we go to the cinema. Okay, you join me as what is my new life stage. You might hear somebody banging a fork in the background because she's learning how to use forks. And you might also hear a washing machine in the background because this seems to have become like my wife's thing on a Thursday, on a Wednesday when we're recording the podcast. She goes, "Oh, they're recording the podcast. You know what I'm going to do? I'll put the washing machine on a timer." So
Yes.
So the washing machine is good. Actually, I think I can pause that thing, but we'll see. Anyway, let's talk cinema. After a couple of lean weeks, we've actually made it back to the cinema this week. So tell me, what have you guys seen this week?
Well, I've seen Megalopolis.
Megalopolis.
So that's what I saw, and I saw Lee last week, but we're going to save that because I know Sharon's seen that too, and I'm there.
Yeah.
Sharon,
yeah. We're saving Lee for Sharon. All right, so that's a Megalopolis and Lee, and Sharon, you've seen Lee in cinemas as well.
I've seen Lee at the cinema. Yes, I haven't. Yes, that's all I've seen at the cinema.
I went on your recommendation that you put on our little WhatsApp group tag.
All right.
I'll wait to see your reaction.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we will see that. And I went to the cinema. I made it to the cinema, and I saw The Substance because Shaun and I were talking about this beforehand, and we're talking because The Substance is one of these sort of films where I reckon it's a bit of an art house film. I think it'll be a blink and you miss it, a blink and you miss it kind of film.
Yeah.
And so Shaun, you said you blinked and you almost missed it because it's on weird times of the day.
2:00. It was just on 2:00 in the afternoon over here, over on the island.
Cineworld have had issues with some of their screens, haven't they? So they've got really strange timings.
Oh yeah, because and they're being sold to somebody else anywhere, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are they? I don't know.
Yeah, because Cineworld went into administration and they were talking about how they would have to close down some Cineworlds, either close them down or sell them. And I thought the Isle of Wight was one of the ones they were going to.
Yes, we're on the to be sold list.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and speaking about selling cinemas, so I was just searching randomly. And I realized that, you know how I always talk about my local cinema? And I keep forgetting that there's another cinema with a similar distance from my house because that one is usually about double the price. But I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, The Substance is on there. And it was such a thing where I was like, if I blink, I'm going to miss it. So after we recorded the show last week, I think it was raining so I couldn't play tennis. I just went over to the cinema and watched The Substance. So yeah, I actually managed to see that, and it's interesting. I've told you I'll review it in a second, but I've told you like how I think everybody would react to it. and I am so interested to see how right I am. I'm so interested to see how right I am about that, to see how you all react to it. And all right, cool. How about at home? What have we seen at home?
Well, I've sort of obviously football, been watching a lot of YouTube. And I've also, like I said to you before, I've been watching a couple of old westerns, and I particularly The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I sort of thought, well, I've not seen it for a little while, and I watched it, and it's so class. It's such a class movie.
Still holds up.
Still holds up brilliantly. I loved it. I loved it. So yeah, so that's about my limit moment. Oh, I am sort of getting through the Rings of Power.
Okay.
But obviously that's got to be complete. And I have seen I did see on Sky they're doing Daryl Dixon, aren't they? Or have you done that already?
No, I was like, that was going to be my television contribution or my streaming contribution. I was going to do my 2-minute lightning review of Dead City and Daryl Dixon.
Right. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. We have. Well, because we have three things in the cinema, we want three things to go up against it. I have seen the show called Shining Girls on Apple TV Plus with Elizabeth Moss, and I have also seen I'm going to see a TV show called The Cleaner, Cleaner on BBC
with
iPlayer.
Greg Davies.
I think you mentioned that actually before. Have you mentioned it? No, maybe we haven't.
No, I don't think we reviewed it.
Yeah, because I know I've watched it a while back, but I don't think we ever reviewed it because I finished watching the second season. I know the third one is coming out soon. So
actually, there's probably loads of stuff that I've seen. I need to go back through the chat because that's right. I don't think we did the Franco thing. Yeah, we might have done. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay.
All right. Cool. You go back through the chat. We'll get it on there. We'll get it on to next week. But let us kick off. Let us kick off this week, and let us kick off with the show, the film that has been waiting patiently for us to get around to it, for us to give it our attention, and that is Lee. So, Sharon, will you take us away and tell us about Lee?
Yes, Lee is the story of Lee Miller, who was in the 20s. She was a very famous model. Some iconic pictures of her existence. She was photographed by Man Ray, who, if you know about art photography, he basically almost like revolutionized the format of photography as art. And she was one of his muses. And as she got older, she became obviously very interested in photography. And this is a film about Lee Miller in her middle age, where she becomes a photographer, and she is played by Kate Winslet. And the film is set starts off in the 1930s. And she becomes the first woman photographer to go actually into a combat zone in an official capacity. We meet her. She's living sort of quite a dilettante life in the 1930s in Europe. She's got a group of friends, also artists, poets, people who are sort of bohemians in that sort of 1930s sort of way.
Yeah.
And she meets a gentleman who Lord Renfern, I think his name is, but played by Alexander Skarsgård, who's a member of the British aristocracy. And
I've heard interesting things about his accent.
Yeah, his accent was interesting. And so basically she ends up forming this relationship with him and moving to England. And so she's in England in 1939. And then when the war starts, her career starts when she photographs women at war, but in almost like a domestic context. She's filming scenes of the Blitz and scenes of the devastation in London and how it impacts women. But her passion is she wants to. D-Day comes and she wants to go to take her photography overseas, and she tries to get into with the British Army, and they're saying no, it's just not going to happen. So she's an American citizen. She actually enlists in the American Army, and she's allowed to go over in a sort of non-combatant role to go and photograph, but away from the front line, not battle scenes, but she's allowed to join the army. And she goes over there in 1944 and basically follows the army as it sort of liberates Europe, and she takes photographs along the way. And when she sort of gets to that liberation of Paris, and then she sort of sees the devastation that's been wrought, and she begins to understand that a lot of her old acquaintances have just disappeared because they were wealthy Jews. They've just gone. And as she follows the tale of the army into sort of former sort of German states or into Germany itself, she realizes why a lot of her Jewish friends have disappeared. And she sort of witnesses firsthand the devastation that was wreaked across Europe by these death camps. And she is there to photograph the scenes and the impact it has on people. But a lot of her focus is on the impact on women. And so you see instances where she meets what are called, I think they're called collaborator horizontales, which is basically the women who fraternized with Germans.
Yeah.
And the way they were brutally treated after the war.
Yeah.
I mean, their crime was basically having a relationship with a German.
Yeah.
But they were just treated so brutally, more so than men. I mean, you don't see any collaborators being tarred and feathered and dragged naked through the streets, but that's what happened to women. And so she photographs this sort of encounter and some of the women who were brutalized in the death camps. And it's interesting the way this film is constructed, because it's almost like she's almost like being interviewed at the end of her life, looking back on these sort of key scenes throughout this period of the 30s and 40s. And it's only at the end that you sort of get this reveal as to sort of that sort of sheds light on her as a woman and her as her career and how it's impacted on different parts of her life. But it's very much the story of Lee Miller, this sort of revolutionary model who becomes a revolutionary photographer.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much, as always, Sharon, for that lovely, succinct summary. And although there was a point at which, in the middle of that, I think you started coughing, and I almost instinctively grabbed my daughter's sippy cup and held it out to you. I was just kind of like, oh my God,
Give me a coffee, quick. No.
It's the dad instinct. The dad instinct. I'm trying to pass it through my computer screen to you. Right. So, Shaun, what did you think of Lee?
Okay. I remember we had a little bit of discussion. I'll come to that in a minute. Yeah,
no. I am going to come to that discussion afterwards.
Yeah.
Because Shaun wanted to talk about colorblind casting. So we'll have a discussion about that.
I mean, but it was done subtly. I did say that, but it was done very subtly. But on the whole, I thought this was really good. I thought it was well acted. Incredibly well acted. Maybe Alex. I was thinking that perhaps Sharon, you might have had a thing for Mr. Skarsgård there. You know what I mean?
Yes, I did think his accent. I was just like, okay, I know he's like he's trying to do a 1930s aristocrat's accent. Yeah. So they are very stilted. But I thought, that's not your real voice, mate. I don't believe it's your real voice.
Is that one of the ones you like? Is that one of your secret crushes? Yeah, I thought so. So I think
the entire Skarsgård clan,
bare chested, or what should we say, or his shirt's unbuttoned.
I think he has a well-turned ankle, shall we say?
Yes, yeah. There you go.
I wonder if there's any women in that family.
Expression. Anyway, so I thought this was incredibly well acted, and I mean, I enjoyed this. I thought it was great, like Sharon says, with the bohemian to start with and the people, and it sort of felt real to me. It felt, you know what I mean, it had that good thing about feeling real. And some of the photos that she was taking, and there's one, like say, in the Blitz where she gets the ladies to put on certain attire and stuff, and so, and she frames it very well, because I quite like photography, and I do like Man Ray. So on the whole, this was really, really good. But we're going to come to the one issue that spoiled it for me. But looking at it afterwards, I didn't realise it comes down to tax breaks in this country. But anyway, it's in St Malo when they go, this area's pacified. Yeah, so it goes, we're going to send you St Malo, it's pacified. She goes there, there's a bit of action. And the major there, Major Jonesy, I was like, that was a little stuck in my throat a little bit.
I know where you're tiptoeing around. Every now and then
they try to be subtle with it and not too much.
Every now and then on this podcast, we like to get a little bit philosophical. Yeah. Like we like to get a little bit philosophical. Not quite talking about the situation in the Middle East at the moment. Not quite that level yet. But essentially, what Shaun is talking about is that this major, what's his name?
Jonesy, Major Jonesy.
Major Jonesy is played by an actor called Arinze Kene, and he is a black British actor who is in this position in World War II, as a major in the British Army. Yeah, and that is so okay. Well, first of all, I want to get your star ratings for this film, and then we'll go and talk. We'll have a little bit of a 5-minute thing about colorblind casting. All right, so how many stars would you give it?
I like this film a lot. 4. I'd like this film a lot. 4.
I liked it very much. Yeah, I'd give it a high 4.
All right, cool. So high 4. Oh, good Lord. Right on time.
Good timing.
To be honest with you, even though I pick up on this sort of thing, I didn't really notice it in this.
It was very subtly done. I did say that last week. To
I didn't notice it. Because sometimes you think it becomes a bit obvious. It's a bit like, we're just going to ignore all historical fact, and we're just going to do it anyway, which I think in some ways I prefer, because it's like, if it's in your face, then you know that it's intentional. But I didn't notice it in this at all.
No, I didn't think, because a lot of people, because it was done so well. But I didn't realise that apparently there's tax breaks, because I was having a discussion with someone. They say, there's tax breaks in this country in particular, where
and I think that that's a good thing now, because I think obviously colorblind casting is becoming more and more of a thing. It's been a thing in theater for years, where it doesn't matter. You can have you've had like David Oyelowo playing King Lear on stage in London West End. And I think on stage, because you are I think that there's more of a suspension of disbelief needed for watching something on stage than there is for watching something on screen. So. And there are times like you had the David Copperfield movie that was released a while back with Dev Patel playing David Copperfield, and that was just
I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I
that was just
enjoyed
totally
that one.
colorblind casting all over the shop.
Yeah.
Everything was done. And there are some times when it sticks out and you're like, hang on a second, what are you doing? I remember you were talking about Wicked Little Letters.
Wicked All Letters, yeah, it didn't
Yeah,
work in that
yeah,
context at all. It didn't work.
yeah. For you, it didn't work there. For me, I remember watching the longest day. No, no, not longest day. The Darkest Hour. That's it. Darkest
Yeah,
Hour. The Gary Oldman Churchill
the
film.
Churchill one, yeah.
And there's a scene in it where he goes into the tube, and there's just like this
Yes.
black dude just sitting there, and I'm like, wait a second. That whole scene in the tube, I think, is ill-conceived anyway. But
See, I
there's
quite
just
like that scene on the tube.
well, yeah, but I feel like it's
I just like that whole bit, like never, never, never. I just thought that's the bit I quite like about it because
well,
that's
but
the
they,
sort of feeling that you get. I thought
yeah,
they
but
did that. I like that.
yeah, but the thing is, that scene is extremely contrived. It is extremely
Yes. Oh,
contrived,
yeah.
and if you think about it for a second, you're like, okay, would Churchill actually just have been able to walk onto the tube like that with absolutely
No,
nobody
he
following
was
him?
no idea how to do it for a start. He was not. He was an aristocrat. There's no way he would have been stunning on the tube.
Yeah, and, and also for me, the thing is that and then they just had this bit where you just had a black guy sitting beside a white woman on the tube,
And no one said anything. Yeah.
and no one's acting like everyone's acting like, oh, that's okay, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the way it is, and that's something that took me out. And Shaun, you're talking about the whole colorblind cast, and I think this is quite frankly I think it is a problem with the British TV industry. Not the fact that they're doing colorblind casting, it's the fact that they want to do colorblind casting, and it's good that they want to do colorblind casting because for so long a whole bunch of people have been kept out of the things. Stories haven't been told. The problem I find is that there is a preponderance in the UK for, I think, most of the stuff that's made here. It's either centered around World War II or it's like Jane Austen period dramas.
Yeah.
And if you we just lost Shaun. It's like it's Jane Austen. Maybe, oh man, I did not realize he felt that strongly. I start talking as Shaun leaves, but it's either like essentially there's a lot of period stuff.
Yeah.
So it's either like Jane Austen type stuff, period drama,
Like the
or it's like
Bridgerton
World War
stuff.
II.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and when you
With
look at
Bridgerton, it
that,
doesn't matter because that's fantasy anyway. But
yeah,
it's when it creeps into history that you think you're
Yeah.
just deliberately ignoring history.
Yeah, so if you are going to do that, and if you're going to if that's all you're going to make in the UK, if all you're going to make is going to be World War II era TV shows or films and costume dramas, and then at the same time you're trying to make a more fair, equitable industry where people who are not white have a role.
Get a fair deal. Yeah.
Yeah, the only way you can do it is colorblind casting, and I think that is so. I think that there probably would be, as you're saying, Shaun, tax breaks where they would say something like, if you can guarantee that this is just not going to be a whole totally white cast, then there's probably some money you can access. But then it's a case of it's up to the filmmaker to do it in a way that doesn't jar. That doesn't jar and doesn't make that doesn't sort of like break what's the word I'm talking about, that it doesn't break credibility. It doesn't make you think, okay, hang on, what the heck are we doing here? Because I know personally, as with look, I'm Nigerian, and I know what it's like when it feels like somebody comes in and tries to take your culture and tries to replace it with another one. And I can imagine that that's what it must feel like, especially with you guys who have ties to something like, World War II. Your families were involved in that and fought in that. And then if it now starts feeling as if you're trying to sort of like, I'm pretty sure this is not a phrase, but blackwash history, and kind of like go. I can understand why it would feel like that, but at the same time, I can also understand why that would happen from an industry perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was
you don't really have any roles for black people.
That's it. If it was in your face, though, let's just say, for instance, 12 Years a Slave.
Yes.
Could you put a white person in 12 Years a Slave?
You see, and Shaun, this is an argument I hear a lot when people say that kind of stuff, and I say no. And the reason you can't is because of history. It's because
that's history. World War II's history.
Yeah, no, but what I mean by history is because black people and essentially anybody who isn't white has been discriminated against and has been pushed aside. Like it's a similar thing when you gender flip a role, and like let's say there's a role that has traditionally been played by a man and you give it to a woman, then that is more acceptable than if you take a role that is played by a woman and you replace it with a man. Like if you decide to do Charlie's Angels, but you replaced all the women with men, there's going to be an uproar about it because women have been discriminated against for ages. They've not been given good roles, and now the few roles that there are for women, you're taking them away and giving them to a man. Same way with the 12 Years a Slave. If you said, okay, we're going to do 12 Years a Slave, but we want to put a white guy in the lead, it's black people have been discriminated against for ages, and now you have one good role, and you're going to take it away from a black person and give it to a white person.
Okay, yeah, I can see the point. I was just making that. I wasn't saying that's
no,
I was
Shaun,
just making the point. I mean, I'm as left as you come, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Shaun, because I think that what you're saying is actually a valid point. The only problem is history, and if black people hadn't been discriminated against and pushed out and kept out for all those years, then it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, put a white guy to play the lead in 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point.
But I think in terms of like British culture, though, obviously the culture's changed dramatically since the 40s, when the sort of balance of the percentage of sort of non-white people in there has sort of grown exponentially. So before then, I think it probably would have been. Obviously, there'd be people of different colours or different ethnicities in this country for a long time.
It's just the roles that they would have had. Like a major in the British Army during World War II. It's hard to imagine a black person in that role.
Yeah, but the American.
Officers in the RAF. So, but I suppose that's a different thing altogether. But the only part of me, I don't. Obviously, you accept this is the way the world is. Part of me feels a bit like I don't think they could make things like Pride and Prejudice now. With like Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely, they wouldn't be able to make that now. Which part of me feels like, oh, well, that's a bit of a shame, really, because that was almost like a perfect production, but it was made 30 years ago.
Yeah,
and you think they wouldn't make that today, and you wonder what today's version would look like, whether it would not in terms of the casting, but would they be able to do an adaptation of a book to keep it quite faithful to the way that they're described in the book, the way they're in the book? But I suppose if it's fiction, it doesn't really matter that much because it's a work of fiction anyway.
But I'll tell you what I think.
Sometimes you want to be able to see the book the way it's written, and if it's an old book, that's the way it's written.
Oh, it's funny you should mention that. Have you heard about the furore about the new Wuthering Heights?
Yeah, so then people are saying Heathcliff was a man of colour, and it's like, no, he wasn't. I think he was just. They describe him as like a gypsy, but that could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, but apparently, I've never heard Wuthering Heights, but they talk about the fact that he is deliberately referred to a couple of times in the book as dark.
Yeah, but that could be like they do that as
dark character.
But they refer in some books to the Black Irish, and when they talk about the Black Irish, they don't actually mean sort of African ethnicity. They mean someone who's got black hair, as opposed to like the ginger Irish or the fair Irish. They would just they refer to them as Black Irish.
Yeah, well,
so often you think when someone's described as being dark, it could just be that they're like that.
I think just put it in context. The historical context is better, and I mean in historical context with all the other films, all the films that are made up to date, or maybe 2000 a bit liberal, that's fine. But when it comes, and I think we said when it comes to an historical movie,
Well, I'll tell you.
There are ways and ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I mean, there's loads of different levels you can go to. You can go to, okay, hang on a second, this person was blonde, and therefore they should only be played by a blonde actor or something like that. There's a whole bunch of levels you can go to, and it's all about, and I think a little bit of it, there's quite a bit of it that's subjective as to where you personally draw the line and where you personally feel like. Yeah. I think that's, but there is a Sharon, there is a solution to this, and that is just make more things that are not World War II movies or period dramas.
Exactly.
You do have this sort of chasm between modern crime fiction or dramas about murders, don't you? And then you've got like everything else, which tends
but as I say, in this film, it was very, very subtle and very well done. Because Sharon didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I'll say that because I'll
that's a good thing.
And okay, that's a good thing. And the last thing I'll say about this is because we've also had an exodus of Black British actors who end up going to America. Because they can't find the roles in England. Yeah. So like you have like David Oyelowo, who pretty much is based in America now. David Harewood, he disappeared for like 10 years, and he was on Homeland, and he was on Arrow, and all. And you have this thing with Black. Idris Elba.
Went to The Wire.
He disappeared for ages. He went there, became a big name, then he came back, and that's how we got Luther. So it's the fact that and this is a problem, but then that creates another problem because then Black American actors start complaining about all these British people coming over and taking their jobs. So the question for me, the answer is just make more diverse TV shows. Therefore, there'll be more space for more people to get in there, and then you can have your historically accurate Pride and Prejudice and your historically accurate David Copperfield, your historically accurate World War II people with all the people, because then it doesn't feel as if the industry as a whole is locking some people out. And but yeah, so essentially, I agree. I understand where you guys are coming from, and I understand where because it feels as if your culture is being ignored.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't agree with that, Toes. I would say that it's just out of context of the film. It's from a purely historical fact. Nothing to do with, what it is with. I just, from a purely historical fact, I think things should stay, like factually correct. So I mean, well, you know me, I'm always facts. Like I can pick up badges and stuff like that. So
sure. Shaun complains if the belt buckle is wrong in a World War II movie.
That's what I mean. So, and I mean, I know a lot of people had issues with Tarzan, but the stuff they wore at the beginning in the film Tarzan was just spot on for Belgian soldiers at that time. So.
All right, cool. And so we will stop there and we'll get back to talking about films and stuff. Because if anybody's listening to this and is going, oh my God, get him off his soapbox. Shut up.
Yeah, shut up.
All right, cool. So now it is like, and I'll say, no, colorblind casting. I deserve the right to stand here and talk. Well, anyway, and
we'll still see it, whatever.
We'll still watch it anyway. But as I say, this was done excellently. If Sharon didn't notice it,
I didn't even notice.
That's perfect. And I didn't really, although I picked it up, it wasn't detrimental to the film.
It didn't totally ruin it. You still gave it 4 stars.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And now let's go over to Netflix and Friends. And I'm going to talk on the streaming platform Apple TV Plus and talk about Shining Girls. Shining Girls, and this is a TV show that it stars Elizabeth Moss. And the basic premise of it is that when it starts, if you meet a woman called Kirby, and Kirby works in a newspaper office. She sort of like works. She works underneath the. So I was going to say underneath the floors, but like in the archives, that's it. She works in the archives. When people are saying, oh, I need a thing from 1970-something, this is set in the 90s. And this is the sad thing, guys. Something set in the 90s is now a period piece.
Yeah.
Because I started watching it and I was going like, they'll do something. I'm like, why don't you just pick up their mobile phone? And I was like, hang on a second. This is like, oh my God, it's set in the 90s. And so Kirby wakes up in the morning and you can see that she has this notebook. And in this notebook, she's making notes. She's making notes like, you live at this address. This is the place. You live with your mom. This is a car and everything like that. And then you find out after a while, as the story goes on, you realize that she had been attacked a couple of years back and left for dead. She's been attacked and left for dead. And it turns out that she's not, there's somebody else that has disappeared. And it seems like that person was attacked in a very similar way to the way she was attacked. And so she starts working in the newspaper office and starts trying to piece together and saying, look, we need to catch this person. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to find out, or I would like to catch this person who's done this with me. And then they tell you straight up at the beginning who's doing these things. It's a character played by Jamie Bell who doesn't have a name at the beginning of the show. It's just this random character. And you start realizing that there's something weird going on because some days Elizabeth Moss gets back home and all of a sudden her front door has changed. Or she was living with her mother. She's now no longer living with her mother. Or she gets back to her house and she knocks on the door and somebody else opens the door. And someone opens the door and she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, I live here. She's like, how long have you been living here? I've been living here for 2 years. So she opens up her wallet, takes out her driver's license to look at her address, realizes that her address is 1 floor up from where she thought she lived. She goes up to the floor to open up the door, opens up the door, and one of her co-workers comes in and says, hey, I'm waiting for you, kisses her. She walks in and she sees that there's a picture on the wall of what looks like her wedding day that she does not remember. and so as the show goes on, it starts becoming, it's kind of like, it's a procedural, it's a bit like, they're trying to make it like I think it's been compared a little bit to Seven, and I can see why. Like, okay, what's going on here? What are we going on here? Is there some sort of ritualistic thing? Why do all these women... Why have these women been killed over this time, and why have this anachronistic stuff showed up? And I think there was a film on Netflix called that Sharon, you reviewed years ago. I think it was called In the Shadow of the Moon or something like that. And it had to do with people trying to catch a serial killer, and then they realized that there was like some timey-wimey stuff.
Yes, I remember it.
Yes.
It. I do, yes.
And after a while, you realize in this show that there is something similar like that going on. And it's about how do you do this when this is going on and blah, blah, blah. And is she losing her mind, all that. And that is and I don't want to say much more before I end up spoiling stuff, which I feel like I might already have done a little bit on. And this is one of those things where you know when something's adapted from a book, and even though you've never read the book, you can spot the point at which they changed something.
Yeah.
You can go, okay, this was going all right, and it was going. Then all of a sudden there was this sort of gear change that feels like it's been tacked on, like an ill-fitting extension on a house or something like that, and you're like, that doesn't really work, and everything like that. And then where the show ends up, I remember I was just watching it going, but hang on, what about that? You forgot about that person. You forgot about that character. What goes on with that? And the final resolution to this whole mystery of how it goes, I'll be polite and say I have questions. I'll feel like I have questions. It does some interesting things. It does some, especially with the Jamie Bell character and where he comes from and what happens and what is the mechanism through which all this stuff is going on and all that. Because people are saying that they find like an object at the scene where one of these women has been attacked, and they say, but this can't be right because this thing is from like 50 years ago. How is this thing from 50 years ago here? And then they go to another one and they find something and they go, hang on, but this thing, we found this matchbook and it says that this is the address of this bar, but there's never been a bar with that name at that address ever. And some bits are good, but then some bits I'm just kind of like, the way it ends up is one of those things where you kind of feel, I think I see what you were trying to do. I don't think you've done it. I don't think you've done it. I don't think that quite works. All in all, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's good. I think it's good, but not quite as good as I think they want it to be, or as good as they think it is. Sorry, I'm being played off the stage. Or as good as they think it is. So I think it's all right, but yeah, I don't know. And also the other thing is Elizabeth Moss. So you guys know Elizabeth Moss, right? Shaun, you know Elizabeth Moss from The Invisible Man, your favorite film ever.
Mainly from Handmaid's Tale.
From Handmaid's Tale, yeah, Handmaid's Tale. She came to, for a lot of people, came to prominence during Mad Men and all that. I don't think Elizabeth Moss can play happy. Let me put it that way. I don't think she can play happy. I think you sort of like, you go to different actors and when you cast a certain actor in a certain thing, there's a shorthand. Oh, that person's in it. It's going to be this kind of thing. It's like I feel like, okay, oh, Elizabeth Moss is in it. Oh, this is going to be heavy. This is going to be heavy. This is not going to be a barrel of laughs. So yeah. So that is it. That's what I would say for Shining Girls. 3 stars for Shining Girls on Apple TV Plus. And now let us go to Megalopolis.
Yeah.
It's in cinema. Shaun, you tracked it down. You tracked down Francis Ford Copolla.
Francis Ford Copolla. Yeah. So I saw this on a really, really the biggest screen they've got at the Pool City World. So, yeah. So, and I'm glad I did. I mean, I saw it because it is very, very visual. Obviously, being Coppola, it's incredibly visual. So, you've basically got the story. You've got as an inventor, Caesar Catalina has invented this megalon, a substance of magic building material. But the mayor, Cicero. So you've got all the Roman connotations. The place is called New Rome. It's New Rome. So, and you've got Crassus, and you've got all the like really old Roman names in New Rome. And then you've got a Soviet satellite state called Carthage. So it's taking place sort of modern times, but in a different universe. And it's like the
multiverse strikes again.
The multiverse strikes again, yeah. But so you've got all these like all the names are Roman, yeah. So it sort of all starts out from you've got Dustin Hoffman in this. I'm amazed how many characters are in it, and Sheila
I guess
who I rate very.
If Francis Ford Copolla calls and says, "I want you to be in my film," people are going to say yes.
Well, of course they are. Yeah, I guess they will. So, and it's like this big Roman, like a Shakespearean play to start with. So it's all very, very Shakespearean. It was almost like, not quite, but it's almost like friends, Romans, countrymen, Lengier, and there's all these intrigues, a lot of intrigues going on. There's a bit of flesh about, and yeah, so it's basically the story of the mayor versus Caesar, and then Caesar strikes up a bit of a relationship with the mayor's daughter, and there's riots. It's basically Shakespearean. What's the word? What can we call it? A Shakespearean
Saga.
melodrama with all the characters and all the intrigues and lots of plots, lots of. Especially Sheila Buffy plays a normal, nasty character who I really, really like. But visually,
well, Sheila Buff plays a nasty character. Whoa!
No, get out! I like it. I think I quite.
You know when we were talking about shorthand just a second ago about actors that you cast for certain things.
Yes. Yeah.
But I know who can do that without trying very hard.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shaun, carry on.
Yeah, no, this is great. So, but the visuals in this is very Art Deco. Everything. Yeah. So a lot of it's incredibly Art Deco with the scenery and the
everything looks like the Rockefeller Center in New York.
Yeah. So there's a couple of moments where it becomes a bit. I think Adam Driver there. He's sort of little bit. There's moments where it's like, oh, come on, but. Some of the scenes, there's a scene where he's taken some drugs and he drives through like the city, and you've almost animated the statues of justice and liberty and all that, and they all sort of animate into, oh my God, what's happening to this world?
Yeah.
And you've got split screen. I love split screen. You got like triptychs of all coming up, and I'm like, oh, I like this. And so they're separate scenes, but then the scenes merge, and it was. For me, this was a visual treat. This was just like, it sort of dragged a little bit, I would say. Cinematic. But started. Pardon? Go on.
Cinematic.
Cinematic's the word. Yeah, this is one that needs to be seen at the cinema. I mean, this is what cinema is all about. So, yeah, that split screen a few times when it cut. I was like, real 70s sort of.
I know, Shaun. I was just about to say, it's like Shaun just sitting there like, oh, it's like the 70s are back. Yes,
70s all over again. So yeah, and as I say, it's the intrigue's really good. Oh yeah, you've got John Voight as like a super rich banker that they let's just say they ham it up a little bit. Maybe, perhaps that would be one of the
I could tell that from the trailer.
Yeah. So it's a bit hammy, but then Shakespeare is a bit hammy, if you know what I mean, in a sort of context, like, oh, how dare, with lots of gestures and.
Is this a dagger I see before me?
Yeah, that's it exactly. Just dagger I see before me now is that winter, So yeah. Visually, I thought it was great. I quite enjoyed it, but I know it's got quite a lot of negative. I mean, I don't normally look at reviews or anything like that, but I just thought, looking up, and it's got quite a lot of negative reviews. This, and so I guess I must be one of the few that likes it.
well, the thing is, okay, Shaun. I mean, you're Francis Ford Copolla. He's kind of like. I would imagine he's one of those people. Yeah. He sort of came up at the same time as your love for film came up as well.
Yeah.
So I imagine that there are some sensibilities. Stop trying to stop us. Stop trying to muzzle us. So I imagine that there's some sensibilities that he shares that you quite like. But I mean, already there are some things that you've said that I know you loved them and everything like that.
Yeah.
And there are some things that you said that have made me a bit wary. So
yeah.
Because for instance, you're talking about the visuals. What I haven't heard much about is the story. And I know that as I know as I've grown older, I don't really. I've got to this point where I'm like, yeah. The visuals have to be there in support of a good story, and so I can imagine already why some people, and I can imagine already what there are some things like I try not to do this, but let's say, for instance, this is the kind of film that I can imagine that I might be sharpening a knife and already maybe writing a couple of lines of my review before I've even seen the film.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that it's that kind of thing. But this is your review because you're the one who actually went and watched the film.
Yeah.
And forget about what the other reviews say. What is your review? How many stars would you give it?
Okay. Well, I'm going to give this purely because I enjoyed the experience. I always think if you go to if you see a movie and it's an enjoyable experience and I mean, it's got to be a 4-star for me.
You didn't.
It's like Beetlejuice. I enjoyed that. It's like when I saw Bad Boys. I mean, Bad Boys. I should hate everything in that. I should hate with all the car chasing that. But I really enjoyed that movie. And if you enjoy a movie, I think for me, I enjoyed this, and it was really great. And I went back and I spoke about it. So I can understand what people are saying about the plot and the story and all that. But I've found it probably two halves. The first half was I really enjoyed, and then it tended to be a bit more. But then it got more visual. Then that's when the things started happening. So the story was good to start with. Started the drag, and then it was like 3-screen triptych. Oh my goodness me, where did this come from? So it sort of come in with a big bang. Yeah.
I can just imagine the journey of Shaun watching Megalopolis. Like, wow, visual. Oh, they started talking. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we'll always have the first hour of oh my God, visuals again! Yay!
Yeah, probably not far from that, Toes. Not far from that, mate.
All right, cool. So that's 4 stars for Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And now let us go to Dead City. Let's talk Walking Dead. So Sharon, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to have your Walking Dead thing. I mean, as it goes on with this whole thing, if you listen to this show, you know that I am not the biggest Walking Dead fan. I'm probably the anti-fan, to be honest with you, of the Walking Dead. I'm like, just die already. Stop walking, just die. and so this is Dead City and Daryl Dixon. Is that season 1 or season 2?
Season 1, both of them season 1. Though there are 2 seasons in existence for both of them, though they're not available to UK viewers yet. So basically, I'll keep this quick as well. Neither of these programs will win new fans to the genre. So if you're not already on board with The Walking Dead, neither of these things will get you on board. So that rules out, I think, the majority of probably our listeners anyway. So I'm going to keep this quick.
I think there's some people who watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah, so both of them are set after the main Walking Dead series has ended. So we've left the whole body of cast, and so we find we have these little sort of branches from the Walking Dead tree following different characters. So the first season that was produced was Dead City, which involves Maggie and Negan, and basically it's like a thinly contrived reason gets them together in New York City. And they're in New York City on this quest. And so you see that sort of that spark between them, where they've obviously got the whole shadow of Glenn cast over their relationship.
For those of you who do not know, essentially Negan killed Maggie's husband.
Yeah, when she was pregnant with their son.
Quite brutally.
Brutally, yes. And this one event basically has cast a big shadow over the whole franchise. I mean, some people say that was the point in which The Walking Dead went downhill after that point. And I would agree with that because I've rewatched a lot of them, and it got to that point and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to watch this season now because you know that's coming, and it's like the red wedding. It's like it's a game changer. And so for me, it was like when I was rewatching them, I was thinking, I don't need to see what happened to Glenn again. And afterwards, it's like before Glenn, after Glenn. Yeah. And so this is a story about Maggie and Negan, and it's just like this. They're sort of bickering. There's sort of a bit of sexual tension there, but you know that it's never going to be sort of fulfilled because there's too much history between them.
I think that might actually properly kill The Walking Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. So they try to create this sort of frisson, but you know that it's like if they did that, it would just like destroy everything. So they try to redeem Negan, but they try to redeem Negan, but for redemption, there has to be repentance. And I think in some ways it's like, yes, I can understand that he has repented of that action, but there's still a bit of that old Negan there. So we see that come and go. So yeah, they're like teasing us with old Negan and this redeemed Negan. So it won't bring any new fans. And I found it okay, but nothing. I could have not watched it and not got any the wiser at the end of it. So
Mm.
I would give that a just about a 3 for the diehard Walking Dead fans. For a non-fan, it's a 2 because there's
Okay.
nothing there that will help you with that. Daryl Dixon is the story of Daryl Dixon, who was like a bit of the maverick in the film. He was like the biker guy. He was one with the crossbow or the bow, and he always had a motorbike, and he was always slightly on the periphery. He was like Rick was very much the lead man, whereas Dixon was like his sidekick in many ways.
Yeah.
And this is like bringing Dixon Daryl is front and center, and for reasons he ends up on a boat and gets cast adrift, and he ends up in France.
Ooh.
And so you see him sort of basically wake up on a beach in the south of France and make his way basically across a different landscape. This is no longer in his own turf. He's no longer in America. And we're going to see what the zombie apocalypse did to Europe, and in particular in the first season to France. And obviously the landscape lends itself to it. So you've got castles, you've got monasteries, you've got the ruined Paris, and you see him again. He is involved in a quest. He meets a nun, and you go into her backstory, and they go on like this quest together. So they're both these seasons are quite compact. They're like 6 episodes long.
Yeah.
So again, it won't win you any fans, but it's certainly an interesting twist on the Walking Dead franchise. So I rated it much higher. Still wouldn't win any new fans, but I'd certainly give it a high 3, as it's entertaining, it's gripping because it's something different, and there's some interesting characters that you meet. So no new fans, but for the diehards, I'd say watch Daryl Dixon season 1, but probably give Dead City a miss.
It's okay. Well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. Shaun, I'm not sure if you see it, but I've heard a lot of comparisons with Dead City to Escape from New York, because they go to Manhattan, and the same Manhattan has essentially turned into the New York from Escape from New York.
I will catch up with it.
Yeah, there's elements of that true. I Thought You Were Dead doesn't. No one says I thought you were dead, but they probably should have done.
What about
made it a bit more interesting.
you saw the other one as well, didn't you, with Michonne and thingy, which you reviewed before?
Yes, I saw that. I've reviewed that one. I liked
that the best one.
one.
Is that the best of the 3?
The ones
Of
who
the
live.
3, I liked that one because I felt like it took the storylines left over from The Walking Dead and it took them to some conclusion. I think it actually, instead of just like going, yeah, we want to start a new thing. This was like, okay, we've got these threads. Let's tie those threads up and give them an ending. And so I think that's their story is ended.
Yeah. Well, so you see now, I was going to at one point I was going to split some hairs about how long this guy passed out for if he woke up in France, but
they do give him reasons, but how long? Yeah, they do. But by the end of the season, you know how he gets there.
But at the end, I was just kind of like, you know what? Forget it. It's kind of like we just want an excuse to go to France and show the zombie apocalypse in France. Yeah, we can't do it with a brand new character. So reasons. But then again, I'm not that invested. So
no.
I'll say happy Walking Dead Christmas to all who celebrate. But all right, cool. And now we go back to cinema. We're going to talk about The Substance. The Substance. This is a film starring Demi Moore, and it is directed by a French director called Coralie Fiergat, or I think it is. I've never heard it pronounced out loud. And so this is a bit art housey, and this is the film that I said that when I went to watch it, because I'm the first one out of all of us to have watched it, and I said that Holly, I think, will like the overall message of the film. No, she might not like some scenes. Sharon, I would not recommend this film for you. I would honestly not recommend this film for you. I mean, you might surprise me, but on the balance of probabilities, I would not recommend this film for you. And Shaun, I said, I don't know if this film is mad enough for Shaun to love or silly enough for Shaun to hate.
I'll make a point of trying to see it.
I really don't know. But the whole idea behind this film is that the film kicks off, right? And one of the first things you see is a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame being constructed. And this star is being constructed, and it's for someone called Elizabeth Sparkle. So you see them putting all the things, they put the star in, you see them pour the tar in, they put the name down, and they brush it, and it's nice and shiny. You see a bit where, like, and it's all done from, like, a top down. So you're looking directly down at the star. And then you have this sort of, like, you remember, like Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets? Where at the beginning, where you have this whole thing of, like, the times they're changing. There's a scene like that where you're just looking down at this star, and you can see where, whoa, you're the wonderful people. Like, people come to Hollywood and they want to take a picture with the star. Everything goes on, and then over time you start seeing, like, people just start walking over it. There's leaves on it. Nobody bothers cleaning it up. Someone is eating a kebab and drops it on it and doesn't even bother cleaning it, and then the star itself cracks. So you get the idea that this person was once the talk of the town and is now essentially growing old. So, and then you meet Demi Moore, who is Elizabeth Sparkle, and she is essentially like, think Jane Fonda in the 80s. She does something like that, like, okay, everybody, we're going to do now, get your knees up, well, let's go, all that kind of stuff. And when you meet her, it's her 50th birthday. And she needs to go, then there's a scene where she needs to go to the loo. She ends up going to the men's loo because the women's loo was broken. And then Dennis Quaid pops in. And Shaun, you will like Dennis Quaid in this film because he is grotesque.
Oh, right.
Dennis Quaid is grotesque. He's like the way he's filmed. Every single time he shows up on the screen, it's just like he looks like somebody. I mean, the fact that he's a TV executive. His name is Harvey. He just exudes the air of somebody that has a sex scandal. Has a sex scandal in a closet somewhere. You just know this guy has a sex scandal just somewhere waiting to come out. And so she overhears him when he's on the toilet. So the first time you actually see him, it's a close up of his face while he's peeing, and he's talking about the fact that she's 50. I don't care if she's still, get her out of here. She's old. She's old news. And so she gets binned because she's 50. And I think this is at the beginning of the film, the film seems to sort of like it wants to point out almost setting out his manifesto, because this is Demi Moore. The first show of the film, when you see her, I'm still thinking, damn, that woman looks good. That's like, Demi Moore looks good, but she's 50, she's out. And so she gets kicked out, and through reasons, somebody ends up talking to her about this thing called the substance. And it's something that the whole advertisement of the substance is, do you want a new you, have a younger you, relieve your youth, that kind of thing. So she gets this thing, injects it, and in a very kind of David Cronenberg / The Thing, like the Thing kind of saying, essentially her back splits open and a younger self pops out, played by Margaret Qualley. And they have all these rules, like you must you now have two bodies, but it's still you, and you must have 7 days in one body, 7 days in the next body. And it's a bit like Gremlins, like, don't feed them after midnight or else. And it's like 7 days in one body, 7 days in another. Don't mess with these rules or else. And so you have, and there's this, the film has this whole thing where they seem to share memories up until the point where she injects herself. Then they become two separate people. Right. And when this younger person comes out, the first thing she does is go back to the TV station and get her old job back. But now when they get the old job back, it's no longer like Jane Fonda. It is like this new dance video that they're doing is pretty much softcore. It's yeah, like honestly, like there's some scenes in it I'm going, whoa, oh, good God, sheesh, this is like an anatomy lesson. and so what goes on is like, she gets the whole job back, and then it goes on and you find the whole thing about the old person, the younger person, what happens when they start fighting with each other, and how things go wrong when those rules get contravened. And this is a film where obviously with the you can look at it and it will immediately get brushed with a satire, or tarred with a satire brush, and people will be like, okay, this is a satire talking about the way about Hollywood and the way we like beauty standards and unrealistic things and what we do to women and all that. And I don't actually think it's a satire. I don't think it works as a satire. I think it's because it doesn't. There's things about it, the philosophical, like for instance, the fact that this woman, essentially, I think it works more as a character study of what the system has done to one woman, in that she has been in this thing for so long that when she gets fired, she pretty much doesn't leave her house. She doesn't leave her house because she doesn't know what she's going to do with herself, because her entire identity has been taken from this thing. When she gets a new lease of life, okay, for instance, if as she got a new lease of life, she was younger and everything like that, she now went back in there and went, okay, I'm going to use the fact that they worship beauty, and I'm going to use it to sort of like mess up Dennis Quaid, and I'm going to take his job, or this is just like, you know, a first base rubbish script that I'm writing in my head right now. Sure. I'm going to take his job. Then I think that would be more of a satire. But she just.
So how many stars would you give it then, Tos?
Yeah, I know, Shaun. I know I've been talking a while, but I got to stop saying.
Okay.
So yeah, the thing is, I would give this a 3. I would give it a 3 out of, because I think it works quite well. There are some bits that are straight out of David Cronenberg, man. There's some bits that are straight out of like The Fly and stuff, and you can see that the director has been inspired by that. But I would give it a 3 because I think it's good. I like some of the things it says, but I don't really think it holds together as satire. It holds together a lot more as a body horror and as a character study of one woman who has been in a system for so long that. What being in the system for so long has done to her, but
as a body horror, so
it's definitely a body horror. It's definitely a body horror, and I think it's quite shallow. Quite frankly, I don't think it's as deep as it thinks it is, or as people might have wanted it to be. So 3 stars for the substance, but I would still recommend you see it, Shaun. Sharon. Yeah. I can't recommend it. Sorry.
I try and catch up with it. Give you my rundown.
Yeah, no, I mean, Shaun, you go watch it, then you tell me if you think Sharon would like it, because I don't think she would. All right, cool. And now, final thing we're going to talk about, The Cleaner. The Cleaner, I'm going to try and do this one quickly. The Cleaner is on BBC iPlayer, and this is a Greg Davies TV show, and it's based originally on a Scandinavian TV show. I can't remember what country it came from originally, but the idea is that he's a crime scene cleaner. So he actually so every episode is him going to a different crime scene and cleaning a different crime scene. And from there you find, there's a couple of characters that are there in every episode. There's him, there's a policewoman friend of his. But apart from that, every single episode has a new guest star. Every single episode has a new thing, and so like the first episode, he goes into, it's a man who's been killed by his wife. Nobody knows where the wife is, and he has to clean up the house after it's been done. And it's essentially one of these. It's essentially Greg Davies walking around doing his thing. He plays a character called I want to say Lumpy. All he dreams about, like his whole life is all about, I just want to finish this job so I can get down the pub, because tonight is onion bhaji night. I'm gonna go down the pub with my mates and go to onion bhaji night. And with that, then you have like different episodes that do different things. Some of them get a bit more philosophical. Some of them are about like, has he wasted his life? Some of them are about like, when some of them are just plain funny. So you have like, guest stars like David Mitchell, Helena Bonham Carter. You have Alex Lawther shows up in one of the episodes. And I, generally speaking, as I say with comedy, I find it really hard to review a comedy without trying to just sort of like, badly recreate all of its jokes. But I would say The Cleaner, I actually quite like this. I quite like The Cleaner. I think it's quite good. I think that there's something in it for everyone. I feel like, I don't know what the original was like, but this version is very British. The version is there's one episode that it's very much about, gentrifying town centers and the way like town councils make all these decisions that nobody wants.
Yeah. There's a lot of random flower beds in Newport, planters.
Yes, yeah. It's something like that. It's something like that. I think it's an episode. I think it's called The Chickpea. I think it's called The Chickpea, and it has to go. And that episode is weird because it goes into like councils and how they sort of unilaterally make decisions that nobody wants, and it also goes into things like like in the wake of like the Black Lives Matter riots that happened a couple of years ago, where they pushed that Tosin character statue down in Bristol.
Yeah.
There was a whole thing like that about, okay, we're going to get rid of the, but we're going to replace the statue with and all that. So I think like it's kind of like a Trojan horse because it's a comedy, but it manages to sort of like sneak all these sort of like, deeper issues in there in a not heavy-handed way that I actually quite like. So all in all, I think I would give The Cleaner a 4 out of 5. I mean, I think it took me ages to watch the second season because I kind of forgot about it, but it's that kind of show where you can watch one episode and not feel the need to watch the next episode, and then come back and go, oh yeah, I was watching that. I actually finished watching that. And you still enjoy it when you watch it, but after you've watched one episode, you've watched the episode. It's done. Goodbye. So yeah, that's it. And that is it for our show this week. And all that is left to say is, Who do you think has won this week? Netflix or cinema, guys?
Well, I think it would be cinema myself, but then I don't know. I think you gave 3 for the substance, so, and you've just given a 4 there. So I'm still going to say cinema's pipped it.
Okay, Sharon.
My maths is not that good, so I don't know.
And Shaun will be correct. Cinema has pipped it. If we're going by averages, it will be 3.6 for cinema, 3.3 for Netflix this week.
Oof.
Yeah, Netflix and Friends this week. Right.
So quite a good week then.
It's been a good week. I mean, nothing less than a 3. Nothing less than a 3. So it's been a good week. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening this far. Please do get in touch with us on Twitter, on let's see. No, we're not on Instagram. But so Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Just look for Netflix VS Cinema in all those places. Get in touch with us and let us know whether you think we're talking sense or whether you think we're talking a bunch of gubbins. Mm-hmm. As in, this being the internet, I'm looking forward to everybody telling us we're talking a bunch of gubbins. But do get in touch with us. It will be great to hear from you. And until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Yes, we are now going to go somewhere and try and see if we can find Joker Folie à Deux in any cinemas yet. Bye.
That's Friday. That's released on Friday.
Ooh.